Hi everyone, today we'll be going over accounts October-November 2021 paper 3 question number 3. This is structured paper 3 which consists 6 questions each of 25 marks, and we also have a time limit of 3 hours. So we will be attempting to solve each question under 30 minutes. Without any further delay, let's get started. Question number 3 is a part of section A, which is related to financial accounting. So Julia is a trader based in Tasmania. She uses the services of two agents, Iona in Samoa and Henry in France. So what we can say here is that Julia is actually the consignor, right? And then Iona and Henry are the consignee. All right. During the year ended 31st December 2020, Julia shipped 1,000 units of her product to each agent at a cost of $50 per unit. So to both the agents, Iona and Henry, Julia sent 1,000 units, each with the cost of 50. Julia paid the freight costs and the agent paid the import duties. By the year end, Iona had sold 400 units and Henry had sold 900 units. Alright, if both the agents were sent 1,000 units and Iona only sold 400 out of the 1,000 units, then the remaining units is 600 units, right? That's just the difference between the sent units and the sold units, 1,000 minus 400. So this 600 units is going to be the closing inventory for Iona. Let's repeat the same process for Henry. He sold 900 units out of the 1,000 units, which means that the remaining number of units is 100. So this 100 is going to be the closing inventory for Henry. Now, at the year end, Julia's books of account included the following two ledger accounts. So we're given the consignment to Iona account and consignment to Henry account. And we're also given the information that during the year, Iona had remitted 30,000 to Julia. This just means that Iona paid 30,000 to Julia. Then we have the first question where we need to prepare Iona's account in the books of Julia for the year ended 31st December 2020. So this is quite an easy question because we're already given the consignment account, right? So we have the consignment to Iona account right here. So we just need to look at this account, and whenever there is Iona, right? So we can see there's an Iona for import duties, Iona for commission, and Iona for sales. So this is a ledger account, and now we just need to prepare Iona account, which is again a ledger account. So if we see Iona on the debit side on this consignment to Iona account, we post these amounts to the credit side under the heading of consignment to Iona account. Same process for the sales amount of 56,000. Since this is on the credit side, we just post it to the debit side in our Iona account with the heading of consignment to Iona. So this is really simple, right? So let's get started. So we are preparing Iona's account. And this is a T account or a ledger account. So I'm just going to drop a line. All right, so this is the debit side. This is the credit side. Like I said before, we just need to look at the consignment to Iona account and just post it to the opposite side. So the first one is we have Iona import duties amounting to 3,000. Since this is on the debit side, we just post it to the credit side under the heading of consignment to Iona. Let's do that. So this is consignment to Iona, and this relates to the freight charges, which was 3,000. Repeat the same process. Now we have Iona relating to commission, and this amounted to 8,400. So we just post it to the credit side under the heading of consignment to Iona, and this will relate to the commission amount. So that's consignment to Iona amounts to 8,400. Now we repeat the same process for the one heading that is on the credit side right here. So this amounted to sales, and we have the amount 56,000. So we just post it to the debit side under the heading of consignment to Iona. Let's do that. So that's 56,000. But we are also given an additional information right here. During the year, Iona had remitted 30,000 to Julia. So this just means that Iona paid. Now, if we are to prepare a journal entry of this transaction in the books of Julia, then 30,000 is being received by Julia. So whatever comes in is in the debit side. So we can just debit it with the heading of bank. And we have Iona, and since Iona is paying this amount of 30,000, this is a personal account, and in case of personal account, we credit the givers. Since Iona is giving this amount, Iona will be on the credit side with the same amount of 30,000. And since we are making a ledger account for Iona, we just post this amount of 30,000 under the heading of bank on the credit side, since Iona is on the credit side in our journal entry. Let's do that. So we just need to post it to the credit side under the heading of bank with the amount of 30,000. Alright, this concludes all of the headings that needed to be included in Iona's account. Now we just need to figure out the balancing figure, which should be on either debit or the credit side. So in order to figure that out, we just need to total the debit side and credit side and then figure out the heavier side first. So the total for the debit side is just going to be 56,000. Then the total for the credit side is going to be 3,000 plus 8,400 plus 30,000, which is 41,400. So we can clearly see the debit side is the heavier side, which means that the balancing figure should be on the credit side. So we can just write it down as balance CD. And since this is on the credit side, this represents the amount that is yet to be paid to Julia by Iona. Let's figure that amount. So we just write down the total of the heavier side on both sides, which is 56,000 in this case. Now balance CD just acts as a balancing figure, and whenever we try to figure the balancing figure, we just need to subtract these amount from the total amount. In this case, that's going to be 56,000 minus 3,000 minus 8,400 minus 30,000, which gives us the total balance CD to be 14,600. Now we just need to record this closing balance as the opening balance for the next accounting period. So if the closing balance is on the credit side, then the opening balance must be on the debit side. So we can just record it down as balance BD, and it will have the same amount as the closing figure, which is 14,600. Alright, this concludes our first part. Now we can move to the second one. We are given additional information. Julia prepared her draft financial statements and then discovered that she had in error debited the freight costs for Iona's consignment to Henry and the freight costs for Henry's consignment to Iona. Alright, let's look at this error in more depth. So we're given the freight charges right here for Iona and freight charges right here for Henry. And this was actually an error. The freight charges for Iona should have been 4,000, whereas the freight charges for Henry should have been 18,000. So she just switched it up, right? The amount that should have been allocated to Iona was allocated to Henry, and the amount that should have been allocated to Henry had been allocated to Iona. So that is an error. Now let's have a look at the question. We need to prepare journal entry to correct the error made in recording the freight charges, and a narrative is required. All right. So freight charges is being paid to either consignment to Iona account or consignment to Henry account, right? And this is an error. So this 18,000 should have gone to the consignment to Henry account from the consignment to Iona account. In order to record this, we just record the consignment to Henry account in the debit side, because this account is going to receive that amount, and consignment to Iona account will be on the credit side with the same amount of 18,000, representing that the 18,000 has been actually transferred from consignment to Iona to consignment to Henry to recover this error. Then we repeat the same process for this 4,000, in which the consignment to Iona account will be on the debit side, since this is the receiving side, and the consignment to Henry account will be on the credit side, since this is the paying side, to represent that 4,000 has been actually transferred from consignment to Henry account to consignment to Iona account in order to rectify our error. Let's write it down. All right, so this is the debit side, and this is the credit side. Now let's rectify the 18,000 that should have actually been charged to Henry. So we can just write it down as consignment to Henry, and he should have received 18,000. And this 18,000 is being transferred from consignment to Iona account. And this will be on the credit side with the same amount of 18,000. We then repeat the same process for the 4,000, which should have been transferred to consignment to Iona account. So now the consignment to Iona will be on the debit side with the amount of 4,000, And this 4,000 will be transferred from consignment to Henry account, which will be on the credit side with the same balance of 4,000. This concludes our journal entry, but we also need to write down a narrative. So a narrative for this transaction can be correction of error in posting freight charges to consignment accounts. Alright, this concludes our second part. Now we can move to the third one. We need to explain the effect the error had on the value of inventory in Julia's draft statement of financial position. We need to support our answer with relevant calculations. In order to do so, let's have a look at the consignment accounts. So we already know that the balance CD represents the closing inventory in the consignment accounts. So for Iona, the closing inventory is being valued at 42,600, and for Henry, the closing inventory is being valued at 5,500. So our present draft total of inventories is just going to be the total of these two amounts, right? Let's calculate it. So we can write it down as draft total of inventories. So the inventories for Iona is 42,600, and for Henry that was 5,500, which gives our total draft inventories to have the value of 48,100. Now we need to find the correct inventory for Iona. Let's do that. Correct inventory for Iona. In order to figure this out, let's have a look at our consignment account. So we know that in order to figure out the inventory value, we always add up all of our costs. So the cost is goods sent on consignment, freight charges, import duties. So these three are the cost. And we know that freight charges actually should have been 4,000, but we had included 18,000 previously. Now, in order to rectify this amount, we just need to add 50,000, which was the value of the goods sent on consignment. Then we need to add our correct freight charges of 4,000, and then we need to add our import duties, which was of 3,000, in order to figure out the total cost for the 1,000 units. Let's do that first. So we have goods sent on consignment 50,000, correct freight charges 4,000, and the import duties of 3,000. So this relates to the cost for 1,000 units, but we only need to figure out the cost for our inventory, right? Now let's have a look at the question again. We know that Iona was sent 1,000 units, and we also know that Iona had sold 400 units, meaning that 600 out of the 1,000 still remained as the closing inventory. So now we can just easily figure out our value of closing inventory by using the unitary method. So if this total relates to 1,000 units, in order to figure out the total for 600 units, we can just multiply it with 600 and divide it with the 1,000. So this gives us the value for the correct inventory of Iona, which is going to be 50,000 plus 4,000 plus 3,000 times 600 divided by 1,000, which gives us the total of 34,200. Now we repeat the same process and figure out the correct inventory for Henry. Let's have a look at the above consignment accounts. So the cost is goods sent on consignment, freight charges, and import duties. So previously we used the incorrect freight charges of 4,000, but now we need to adjust it with our correct freight charges of 18,000. So that's just going to be 50,000 plus 18,000 plus 1,000. Let's do that. So that's going to be 50,000 goods sent on consignment, 18,000 freight charges, and 1,000 import duties. Again, this cost relates to the total number of units sent to Henry, which was 1,000. But what we know is that Henry sold 900 units, which is given right here, which means that the closing inventory for Henry is just going to be 100 units. Now again, we repeat our same process of unitary method in order to figure out the cost that is associated with the 100 units. So in order to figure that out, we can just multiply it with the 100 and divide it with the total number of units, which was 1,000. So the correct inventory for Henry is just 50,000 plus 18,000 plus 1,000 times 100 divided by 1,000, which gives the total of 6,900. Now we can just figure out the corrected total of inventory, which is just the sum of correct inventory for Iona and correct inventory for Henry. So that's 34,200 plus 6,900, which gives the total inventory to be 41,100. So previously our draft total of inventory was 48,100, and now the corrected value of inventory is 41,100. Now let's have a look at the question again. We need to explain the effect the error had on the value of inventory in Julia's draft statement of financial position. So we can clearly see that the value should have been 41,100, but it had been recorded at 48,100. We can clearly state that the effect of error was to overstate the inventory, as the proportion of freight costs being carried forward to the following year was too high. Let's write it down. The effect of error was to overstate inventory. Let's also figure out the overstatement amount. So that's just the difference between the two values, draft one and the correct one. So that's 48,100 minus 41,100, which gives the difference to be that of 7,000. So the effect of error was to overstate inventory by 7,000, as the proportion of freight costs being carried forward to the following year was too high. This concludes the third part. Now we can move to the fourth one. We need to explain the effect the error had on Julia's draft profit for the year. So we already figured out that the closing inventory was overstated by 7,000, right? And if we're talking about profit for the year, that is associated with our income statement. And in the income statement, we know that we always add our closing inventory, right? But we know that the closing inventory had been overstated, which means that there was again another addition, right? So two positives always make a positive. So we can say that the draft profit for the year had also been overstated by 7,000 because the freight costs were not properly matched with the sales. Let's write it down. Draft profit for the year was also overstated by 7,000 because the freight costs were not properly matched with the sales. This concludes our fourth part. Now we can move to the fifth one. We need to complete the following table to show which items relating to a consignment appear in which financial statements of a consignee. Name the section of the financial statement in which they appear. Let's have a look at the consignment account first. So the only thing that needs to be recorded in the financial statements is the amount owed to the consignor by the consignee. So Henry obviously owes some amount to Julia, and so does Iona, right? So that is the amount that should have been recorded in the financial statement. Then the second item would be that of commission, because commission needs to be paid to the consignee by the consignor. So actually Iona and Henry receive certain commission, right? So this should also be treated in our financial statement. So these are the two items that we need to record in the table below. The first one was the balance owed to consignor, and the second one is commission earned. So the reason why we're recording this from the point of view of the consignee is because in the question we need to show which financial statements of a consignee. So that's why we're recording this in the point of view for the consignee. So if we're talking about consignee, then obviously we're talking about Iona and Henry, right? So Iona and Henry owe a certain amount to Julia. So that is a balance owed to consignor, which means that they still need to pay it. And whenever we're talking about payables, those are the current liabilities, right? So that is in the section of current liabilities. And current liabilities is always a part of the statement of financial position, which is going to be our financial statement. So statement of financial position. All right, then if we're talking about commission earned, these are the amount that is already received by the consignee, who are Iona and Henry. So since they are already received, they are actually treated as an income. So the section that they fall under is the other income section. And the incomes and expenses are always recorded in our income statement, which is going to be our financial statement. Let's write it down. All right, this completes the table as well as the fifth part of this question. And this also completes the entire question. So if you found this video useful, make sure you like the video and leave a comment below. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you do not miss any of these videos in the future. Thank you.